When does Steve come here?
He's here with our Wi-Fi. It got zapped, but I think I'm on now.
Well, to be precise,
Exactly right. Thank you, Steve.
I'm just saying.
Thanks for that, Steve. That's a good reminder. Sorry if when people try to come in on Facebook Live. I'm so sorry for the done, but it's never great in this building. I should have stayed over at the rectory today, I think. Sorry about that, everyone. We'll try. Okay, so let's get started. Our readings today for Sunday are kind of the Psalm is on page 670, and that's Psalm 65, the whole live. Isaiah 55, 10 through 13. Small passage, but interesting one. And for the gospel, it's broken up again for some reason. We'll see why. Matthew 13, 1 through 9. And then 18 through 23. Yeah, so Matthew skip some and go 18 to 23 to finish that up. So, and then we'll, and what is it? The sixth Sunday after Pentecost, And here's the prayer for that. The Lord be with you. Okay, understand the things we ought to do and grace and power to do them. I guess that's pretty straightforward prayer. But we'll go with it anyways, yeah. What's going on with my, sorry out there, trying to get fixed, but even though Norman was here for hours, it's weak, our Wi-Fi connection here. If people want to phone in, it's 1605. So it's 1605-313-4820, and then after the code is 268007 #. If you have a bad connection on Facebook and want to phone in, and I know we're losing people. And then if you go to our last week's email, you have the Zoom, people are welcome to Zoom in too. And then of course Connie's on the conference call as others on Facebook Live. So I apologize for that, everyone. Steve, do you want to read Isaiah for us? And Connie, maybe we'll prepare the psalm. We'll do the psalm in the middle, like we're having the usual Sunday, even though at morning prayer we have the psalm first. And so maybe Stephen could read Isaiah 55, 10 through 13.
And here I'm using the New Revised Standard. It gives a little subtitle, An Invitation to Abundant Life. A reading from the book of Isaiah. For as the rain and the snow come down from heaven, and do not return there until they have watered the earth, giving seed to the sower, be empty, but it shall seed in the thing for which I sent be led back in peace. And all the trees, instead of the thorn, the myrtle, and it shall be a sign that shall not be cut off.
Thanks be to God. So Lillian, I'm sorry it's such a bad connection. I hope you can hear me. It keeps bouncing in and out some. So I'm so sorry, horrified that we can't get it right here. I really am. But Hebrew Scripture, earth with the rain and the snow come down from heaven, and it waters the earth, bringing forth sprout and seed to the sower, bread to the eater. That's interesting. And so shall my word be that goes out from my mouth, right? That the word of the Lord will not go unheeded. And
Lord knows.
I really do. I like a lot. Of course, but I love a lot of the passages really of. And so let me see what land rejoices. Reminds me of St. Francis, right? St. Francis always talked about nature glorifying God, revealing God's glory. No sound on this, huh? Terrible, terrible connection. Don't know why that would be. Sorry, it's is it still no sound, Lillian? Lillian, maybe you want to phone in to join us, which is 605-313-4820, then 268007 #. But I'll keep trying, Lily. Maybe if I put it in a different location. No, it wants to be on my left. It's not my best side, Lily, but maybe it'll work there now. It seems to be connecting more. Okay, now I'm in stereo. I have to see Steve over here on my screen, and then over to the left is Lillian on my phone, and Connie's in the middle on the speakerphone. So we're good to go now. We're good to go. I hope that's better, Lillian. Let me know if it seems to be connecting now in this location. Okay, good. So we move back a little bit here. Okay, yeah. So I think this is a beautiful image. Again, that's one of the benefits, I guess, of industry slowing down some because of the pandemic, is that nature is replenishing itself. It gives me a lot of hope. I've always said, the tides come and go and are cleansing, the winds blow through. That if we don't go past a tipping point, is the word they use, the expression they use a lot on this island, tipping point. If we don't go past the tipping point, then the planet can resurrect itself. And it seems that I was just down early this morning with Meatball at Steps Beach. We park at the galley, walk down what they call the Gaza Strip in between, and then walk down. It was pretty hot on the beach even this morning, but the water seems extra clear. There's less boat traffic, less boats moored out, off the beach, and it's open sound water there. But it's been noticeable over these months how crystal clear it is, and so I love these images of renewal, of God watering the earth. Snow and water, renewal, and then nature rejoicing too and honoring God. Shall burst out the mountains and the hills before you shall burst into song. What a beautiful image. And
then there's a kind of sweet, almost childlike or childish expression. And all the trees of the field shall clap their hands. I love that.
I know when you read that
so beautiful.
As a lector, you laughed at that even. Yes.
I laugh with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it brought you joy.
It's sweet, and that's I don't know. I hate to sound like Little Mary Sunshine, but that's how life ought to be.
Little Mary Sunshine.
If you're a Christian, that's how life ought to be.
Yeah, yes. We're exactly right. We're optimistic people by nature, resurrection people, and so, yeah. Now, instead of the thorn shall come up the cypress.
I love that.
Yes.
But also, the best image, I guess, is the trees clapping their hands.
Yeah, that's a beautiful image. I have to talk about that one.
That's like in the Psalms. There's one, depends on which translation you use, but you're talking about the sea, and it says, there is the whale, or there is the Leviathan.
Yes.
Which he made for the sport of
it. Sorry, just for the sport of it.
He's making the world. Wouldn't it be cool to have these gigantic fish-like things swimming around? He does it. It's great.
Just for the sport of it, I do love that.
And images like this impress themselves even on pagan Romans in the 1st century BC. There's a famous poem by Virgil, whose, I guess, most famous poem is the Aeneid, his long epic. But in his earlier life, he wrote 10 pastoral poems, and one of them is called the Messianic one. And it's because they think that Virgil, who lived around Naples for quite a while, and there was a lively Jewish congregation in Naples, that he'd heard some of them. He'd been exposed perhaps to some of the Hebrew scriptures. And so there's wonderful images in that poem of kind of the lion lying down with the lamb and the child sitting on the adder's nest and not being hurt. And it's interesting. These images of peace and optimism appealed even to pagans in 50 BC.
Yes, very much so. Okay, let me see. Okay, so anything else about this? Yeah, it could be worse. Could be worse. And I think I love that prayer for us too, that our efforts on behalf of God and the community, we're working more and more with our mission committee to, prayerfully consider what other steps we'll take now we've been supporting emotionally and with some physical needs even, but especially emotionally, the staff of Fairwinds for this whole year. I think we started that late last year, which is a counseling center, helping to prevent suicide, helping people in crisis, helping people with addictions, kind of an umbrella organization even. There's others too that are doing that work on the island, but Fairwinds we have a relationship with. And then, of course, the church in Cuba, our sister congregation down there. The work is on hold, the monies are in place, but no permits yet, very difficult to get in Cuba, as in a lot of third world countries. But we still have that relationship, and we have folks that go down. And then we've had that wonderful feeding program for the summer, the mission committee. Now they're helping deliver the food and put the lobster. People have 177 dinners going out today, which is wild. I think our high up to this point was 107. This is related to the unfair. And thank you for everyone's support of this unfair. It's today is the day of the unfair. That's what we're calling the unfair.
Yeah.
And we've had the summer fair since 1903. And so that's why we say it's unfair that we can't have it now. How you doing, Joey? We can't have it this year. And then tonight, of course, maybe you received that email, Steve, too. And Connie, come over if you're in town. We have a variety show from 7 to 8 tonight. 7 to 8 inside the church. Yeah, the lobster.
Giant lobster.
Yeah, it's a full body lobster suit that our friend Livy Tracy, that great physician's assistant, a nurse practitioner, is. Connie, is those your dogs barking? Your visiting dogs?
Oh, they bark all the time. Every time they see a dog in Ray's Court, they go ballistic. It's mostly Otto.
Really? Yeah. Oh, Otto. I met Otto.
He's a wonderful dog. He's the dog that gets up on his hind legs and hugs you.
Yes, he's a cute doggy. That's right. I saw you with those dogs.
But he thinks he's a really good watchdog, so he barks.
So again, in other words, you can Zoom in tonight, or it's on Facebook Live, the variety show. But it's they're singing all kinds of summer songs. There's some great Ann Martindale, who's fabulous. She's been singing with us, her and Jackie McGrath on
Is the
Morning
Zoom
Prayer.
code the same as for Sunday services?
Oh no, the Zoom code. We sent it out on the email blast on Saturday, I think it was. Yeah. So look, if you can't find that, let me know, Stephen. I can give it to you after the.
So, Father Max, it's tonight at 7?
Tonight at 7, yes, inside the church.
And can I sneak into the church?
Yes, don't tell anybody that like we just did publicly, but yes, you can.
Yeah, okay.
Because I can have 10 people or less, so you're welcome to. Lillian, are you on again, Lillian? Does it sound better? Now that it seems now we have 3 bars and all that. But okay, good. So, Con, if you want to lead us in the psalm, those that have a Book of Common Prayer, and again, if you're on the island and don't have a Book of Common Prayer, let me know. And I'll bring one by or leave one out for you. Page 672 of the Book of Common Prayer. If you're using your Bible instead at home in TV land, it's 65. Psalm 65. We'll do all 14 verses. For some reason, the first 7 verses were optional. It's in brackets, whether you want to use it, parentheses. But I looked at it and saw nothing offensive, but maybe we'll see something. And so I thought we should use the whole thing. So, Connie, if you want to pray up to the asterisk, we'll follow.
That's fine. Okay. Psalm 65. You are to be praised, O God in Zion.
To you shall vows be performed in Jerusalem.
To you that hear prayer shall all flesh come.
Because of their transgressions.
Our sins are stronger than we are.
But you will blot them out.
Happy are they whom you choose and draw to your courts to dwell there.
They will be satisfied by the beauty of your house, by the holiness of your temple.
Awesome things will you show us in your righteousness. O God of our salvation.
O hope of all the ends of the earth and of the seas that are far away.
You make fast the mountains by your power.
They are girded about with might.
You still the roaring of the seas.
The roaring of their waves and the clamor of the peoples.
Those who dwell at the ends of the earth will tremble at your marvelous signs.
You make the dawn and the dusk to sing for joy.
You visit the earth and water it abundantly. You make it very plenteous.
The river of God is full of water.
You prepare the grain.
For so you provide for the earth.
You drench the furrows and smooth out the ridges.
With heavy rain you soften the ground and bless its increase.
You crown the year with your goodness.
And your paths overflow with plenty.
May the fields of the wilderness be rich for grazing.
And the hills be clothed with joy.
May the meadows cover themselves with flocks, and the valleys cloak themselves with grain.
Let them shout for joy and sing. Glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit,
Holy Spirit,
as it was in the beginning, is now, and will be forever. Amen. Alleluia. Okay. Nice one, huh? This is a good...
Yeah, there's some beautiful...
Continuing the theme of optimism.
Yes, optimism and creation, glorifying God. Yeah, it's quite... I like it. Yeah.
Yes.
You know, when we were praying it together, it reminded me of, a lot of psychologists have been saying, my good friend, a brain scientist, has been saying that it's so important when we can to just be outside in nature. Just be out, even the smallest. I find such joy in seeing little flowering weeds growing out of the cracks of sidewalks. And it's like, I remember when we visited the Grand Canyon and they had cypress trees growing out of little cracks. It seemed like there was no soil, but it's growing out of cracks of rocks. These trees so the miracle of life is healing.
There's a place on Fair Street where the little lobelia, or I think it's petunias, are growing out of a little crack.
Oh yeah, that's below the Unitarians' house.
That's it.
It's so funny too because they have. I told Gary and Linda's the minister there, the Unitarian minister, and they have plastic flowers in their window boxes. Plastic.
I know, they're hideous.
Hideous, bright plastic, like fluorescent colored plastic. But
I know.
the petunias growing out of the cracks below them are the color of some of the plastic flowers. So I said, isn't it a miracle that your plastic flowers seeded those petunias down in the cracks? But yeah, it's shocking. I used to, one of my jobs as a teenager, I worked in the warehouse of a California Artificial Flowers, it's called, CalArt. And so we had hideous flowers like that. We had plastic pineapples we'd throw at each other as we went by on the trucks. And but I couldn't believe it. Yeah, but it's so cute to see the real flowers growing underneath the plastic flowers.
But the thing is, all in the early spring, she put just little yellow ones, and then I guess she went off island again, and she put some pink and other colors in.
Wow.
Well.
Okay, so this would be a very good. Yesterday we had a interfaith service too. It's gonna be. They're gonna show it on the TV station here. They filmed it for the TV station, but I think the select board is meeting at the same time, so you'll be seeing it as an interfaith service for healing. Because of the ills of our culture too, because of the pandemic and also the racial tensions and the racism that's reared its ugly head too often. And so, but it's a very pretty service. And for my part of it, I had Joe play, and then with Ann Martindale and Jackie McGrath singing John Rutter's piece For the Beauty of the Earth, which they sang a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks ago at morning prayer. Right, I just love that piece. I said, if I die here, I'm not sure my funeral will be here in Nantucket, but I'd like to have them sing that beautiful song. And so in the midst of, again, in the midst of some of the chaos and the worry and some of the loss of loved ones, even from the illness, that we bring joy. The beauty of the earth brings us joy. It's healing for us. So we sang that, and then my prayer talked about giving thanksgiving too in the midst of this pandemic and the struggles of our societies. That we give thanksgiving for the strength that we find with each other, right? The loving care that surrounds us on every side, for our strength that we find in community. That's healing, and brings us such joy. So I love that for the beauty of the earth. It also talks about, for the wonder of friendship. Was it? Oh, friends on earth and friends above. The friends above, the saints, our loved ones
wonderful.
in heaven.
Yeah.
Saints above, and saints on earth. So this is beautiful, isn't it? The hills be clothed with joy. Meadows cover themselves with flocks, the valleys cloak themselves with grain. Let them shout for joy and sing. Again, this would be good for Thanksgiving, even Thanksgiving time. These images of harvest and plenty.
Mm-hmm. Just commenting on the very first verse of the song. Our prayer book puts the first couple of words in Latin in the beginning. Te decet hymnus.
Yes.
Yeah.
That woke me up. And I've always loved the musical composition of the Requiem by Gabriel Fauré.
Yes.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
And always, when I hear it played or play it, I follow along with the words. And the Te decet hymnus stuck in my mind. And so those first 2 lines are in the Requiem Mass, apparently. You are to be praised, O God, in Zion.
Yeah.
To you shall vows be performed in Jerusalem. So, even service for the dead can include these happy lines.
Yes.
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 But there is one unhappy line. Our sins are stronger than we are. That's so sad.
That's just true.
Yeah. But God will blot them out. It says
Blot
that's
them
good.
out, so that makes it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the Romans last week. What was that one? We had Romans for last Sunday. Romans 7:15. That was all about sin, and that's fine.
The stuff I want to do.
Yes, which I think is.
Vice versa.
Yeah, I like that one. I find that inspirational.
Paul had a problem with that.
Yes, right, exactly. Even St. Paul. We know what we should do, but we often do the opposite. I can testify to that sometimes. Okay, good. So, let me see, where are we? And Lillian, I don't know if you're still on. It looks like Lillian gave up. It looks like we're broadcasting now fairly clearly on Facebook, but I'll just keep recording it. Some people come in and check it out later, and hopefully they won't give up when we had such a bad connection to begin with. Okay, great. So that's Isaiah. Anything else we have to say about that? So this might be, I think, 3rd Isaiah. This might be the end of 2nd Isaiah even. Let me see if I can find it that matters too much. But, yep. This is the very end, chapter 55. That's the end of what they call 2nd Isaiah. And they said it was toward the end of the Babylonian exile. The Babylonian exile was 597 to 539. So it's near the end. And the prophet announces to this audience that the end of their exile in Babylon is imminent. So it's optimistic and comforting and optimistic. Yep. Yeah, visions of God as the great king.
Mm.
Okay, great. So that's pretty interesting. Okay, good. So let me see. And then an everlasting sign that shall not be cut off. Some of these images of cypress and myrtle. Those of you that have been out to the desert, when we lived in Tucson for that year, my first job out of seminary, out in these desert homes, often they had some that have one. At least we had one right next to our property. I guess there's a cypress, a tall, thin evergreens, and they get very, very tall. They can get a few stories tall, and I guess that's probably a cypress. And I think maybe and you can see that people planted them generations
ago. They would
ago.
be tall. Cypress, you see lots of them here on Nantucket.
Yes.
I mean, aren't cypress the same thing as arbor vitae?
I think they are.
Oh, they are?
I think so.
I think so.
This is something else then. I'll have to look it up. It looks like, the ones out there in the desert, it looks like something from the Middle East, which I haven't been to yet, so you'd know better than me. But just these kind of pillars of evergreens, and they just seem like a sign of optimism almost. And certainly in the middle of the desert, it's amazing how they thrive. They thrive like that.
They're an exclamation point in the desert.
Yes, very much so, exclamation point. And this reminds me too that the sign that should not be cut off. It's like the rainbow, right? I'll put the bow in the sky. It'll be a sign, of our covenant. And so that reminds you of that image too. Okay, good. So let's look at Matthew 13, 1 through 9, and then 18 through 23. Matthew 13.
Once again, we can try to figure out why they left out the...
Exactly, yes. Oh, this one's a famous one. And I guess they just leave out, it looks like they leave out when the disciples are questioning him for the meaning of it. This is a parable, and the title, just like Steve's book, my study Bible has, a headline, a title for this chapter. It's called The Parable of the Sower. We know this one well. It's the parable of the sower. So when we find passages like this on Sunday that are so well known, then our challenge is to discern new meaning for today in this. Because we've been hearing this since we were children. Okay, this is a reading of the Gospel according to Matthew. That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat beside the sea. Such great crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat there, while the whole crowd stood on the beach. And Jesus told them many things in parables, saying, "Listen, a sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seeds fell on the path, and the birds came and ate them up. Other seeds fell on rocky ground, where they did not have much soil, and they sprang up quickly, since they had no depth of soil. When the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil and brought forth grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Let anyone with ears listen." Then down to 18. Jesus said, "Hear then the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what is sown in the heart. That is what was sown on the path. As for what was sown on rocky ground, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet such a person has no root, but endures only for a while. When trouble or persecution arises on account of the word, that person immediately falls away. As for what was sown among thorns, this is the one who hears the word, but the cares of the world and the lure of wealth choke the word, and it yields nothing. But as for what was sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit and yields in one case 100-fold, another 60, and another 30. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Okay, so
I guess they left out that part in between because it goes off on another tangent, and they wanted to stick to the parable of the sower.
Yeah, because he's speaking there about parables in general, whereas we've gotten the parable and we're going to get an explanation of it. So they thought,
Right.
yeah.
leave that bit out.
Yes, it was. Last night at our interfaith service, one of the participants, he would introduce big long introduction of what he was about to say or sing, and then say it or sing it, and then a big summary of what he just introduced and then sang and said. It's like, okay, but anyways, we can all do that. And so I guess in this case they thought it would be repetitive, and some of it's repetitive.
Yeah.
And then in parable, it's good to talk about parables, maybe some too, because not every parables use simple imagery, but make us think outside the box. It brings fresh ideas to imagery. And I know from previous studies of this chapter, grain does not produce 100-fold, right? It's
Well, that's kind of Middle Eastern exaggeration.
yes, it's Middle Eastern exaggeration. As even said, they said, Matthew is no farmer, and so it's an abundance, right? As we've talked about previous weeks, the abundance of life that Steve talked about recently when Jesus says that come, you may have life and might have it more abundantly. So it's that kind of richness of life.
And some parables, not too many, but occasionally, I find a parable just opaque. I find it hard to understand. Whereas this one is crystal clear.
Yes,
I think it just
Right.
nails it. It's the reason why we've heard it so many times is it does the job. It
yes.
talks about how there's this terrific message that we have. Not everybody gets it. And why is that? It's explained here.
Yeah.
There's an interesting book written about the parables, and I can't remember the author. He's very well known. Maybe one of you knows what it is. It's he was a Gurdjieffian. Does that
What?
make?
Who?
Do you remember when everyone was reading a book called Meetings with Remarkable Men?
No.
It was a cult book of the 60s, 70s.
Oh, was so.
Anyway, there's it's an interesting society. It's the Gurdjieffian Society, and it's Christian, but it's all their own thing. And actually, my oldest daughter, the house she bought in Milton, was owned by the Gurdjieffians, and they were wonderful. They left the house in such beautiful condition. They raked every single leaf. I mean, they're fascinating people. And this man, his book about the parables explained why Jesus used certain images because of what they would have meant then. And
Yes.
my husband's brother was in divinity school, I guess right after I had read it. And he said, oh, no, it's all wrong. Don't read that, it's all wrong. So then I gave the book to a friend because I thought, why should I read it? Anyway,
You don't want to be a heretic.
I've been accused of a lot of things, but
I thought it was a fascinating book. I really did. I just, I'm always asking people if they've ever heard of it, but no one ever has.
I'm an Episcopalian myself.
Because I love gardening images, and of course this starts out so fabulously, because Jesus gets there's so many people on the beach. He had to get in the boat to preach to them. I think that's very cool. If we have beach services, I won't stay on the beach. I'll get a boat, pull out from the shore a little bit. Maybe have to have a megaphone. Okay, everybody. You know, the Lord be with you. But
then we'll have one of your full immersion baptisms.
Hey, yes, I have another one coming up. See, this one's for a child rather than remember. I had a full immersion baptism in the Sound. Was it 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago tomorrow, and that was a young doctor, 28-year-old doctor from Nashville, but this one is a baby, I believe, or an infant, anyways. Yeah, and we're going to go down pretty soon, next week or a couple of weeks, and at high tide again. And I was down at low tide today. Looked like you had to walk out about 100 yards to get up to your waist. It was such low tide down at down at Steps Beach. It's sweet. A lot of people are on little sandbars out there with their family taking pictures, but yeah, it's so the parable of the sower. And again, as a gardener, I love those images of seeds and kind of gardening images. And this one, of course, I lament that children don't have any foundation. And, at least when we grew up, most of us, church was a thing to do, and for many of us, and it gave a foundation that we could have. And then if we strayed, often, in high school or college, young people would go their own way, but then they'd say, this something resonates with me from my childhood about these teachings that I know from my Christian tradition, and then it's easier to come back to. Now, I have dear friends who never had any kind of religious training or foundation, but as young adults, they somehow got plugged in to church, and through friends and then pursued it and have done very, very well without any prepared soil from the early years to stick with this image. But I lament that young people don't have that.
Well, and it's really hard for some people, because when they go to school, supposing they decide to major in English, they have to know so many things in their background, so many images from the Bible.
Exactly. And Shakespeare.
Are you going to read Milton?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to read Milton.
Yeah.
All the great poets. Yeah, and then that's when I was down in. Of course, a lot of them had their own agenda, I think, related to teaching the Bible in our public schools. I know because they were zealots. They were Christian zealots. They didn't. They weren't. They probably didn't want to teach Hebrew Scripture even. They wanted Bible in the public schools, but it wasn't pushed in a way that I could embrace. But certainly, it's an important part of our language, of our tradition.
When I was at the University of Pennsylvania, they actually had an English course that was called the English Bible, and of course it was the King James Version.
Yes.
I loved it.
The only
It was a
version.
wonderful course. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually think the professor was a Episcopalian, because he definitely wasn't a Baptist or anything
what
like
else?
that.
Yeah, exactly.
He was very
Thoughtful scholarship with the Bible, yes.
Yeah.
And again, it can be presented in a very good way, I think. It could be. When I was down in Delaware, it wasn't the open-minded people, it seemed to me, that were pushing for it. So it didn't get as much traction because it was done in such a... I went to this one school board meeting, and they didn't feel at all bad that one of the few Jewish people in the school was harassed. And they said, and they even said, if Johnny would just become a Christian, there wouldn't be any problem. They stood up at the school board meeting, and then the school board said something about, like, they were representing the majority of the voters who were Christians then. And so I stood up and said, you're not here to serve the children of the majority or whatever. You're here to serve all children, right? To teach all children. Yeah. So just because it's a Christian majority doesn't mean that you, they had the teachers were gathering around the flagpole for Christian prayer and things like that. Again, I was sent to parochial school because my parents wanted me to learn about the Bible, about our tradition, and now too, we had a parish survey, and a lot of people were anxious that we would reach families and young children, but that's the parents' job to bring them. I can't recruit the children. For years, I've been blessed to be involved with, be a camp director for the Diocese of Pennsylvania, and for a couple of years for the Episcopal camp. That's a wonderful ministry, and that's something we should all support in our communities. Is when we can get back to it. The camp in Delaware that we were involved with, Camp Arrowhead, couldn't gather this year, because of the pandemic. They couldn't gather for overnight camp, but in general, that's a beautiful way where kids sit around the campfire, and so at least the parents know enough to send them to the camp. But it's up to parents to to have prayer before meals and to talk about the Bible, and then have kids come to our Sunday schools and to church. More importantly, I think, to church, to gather with us for worship, for the sacraments when we're able to.
But I will say that back in the 1950s, when I was in elementary school in Virginia, this is public school, they began every day saying the Lord's Prayer and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think things went better back then.
Well, for some people they did, Steve.
Reactionary opinion.
For some people they went better. For others were being lynched. So, so much for the Christian prayers being a good influence in some of our states. But again, I can understand, and in a lot of our communities. Look, I grew up. We had so few Jewish people, so few people of color in our community. My particular neighborhoods that I grew up in. But the world has changed. The world has gotten so much more pluralistic, and I think we need to respect that. I mean, I honor that we have such a mix of people. So I think again, prayer can work in public schools if it's radically inclusive. If it's multicultural prayer. But then again, I know from my Unitarian friends, not everyone believes in God. They believe in ethics. So then because we believe in separating church and state. We have a friend visiting who grew up in Cornwall. So she talked about Church of England had, of course, such an influence that in their schools too. Similarly, they had chapel. They had morning prayer. They called it assembly, but it was chapel.
Do they still in England?
I don't know if they do. My friend's a little bit younger than me, but I'm not sure if they still do or not.
Again, I would have to point out that it was the Unitarian Church that was struck.
Thank you.
Just saying.
Poor Linda, it's true. Yeah.
Could I bring up one verse here?
Sure.
Let me see. No, I can't find it. Here we go. This is 22. As for what was sown among thorns, this is the one who hears the word, but the cares of the world and the lure of wealth choke the word, and it yields nothing. And if I could sort of offer a little commentary, I get the part about the cares of the world. And also, I mean, look, I spent decades being a banker to very, very, very rich people. And I will say that many of them were very good and moral people and helped out charities and cared about others. And some of them were jerks who didn't.
Yes, like any. Yeah.
So the lure of wealth, it's the lure, I think, more than wealth itself.
Very much so.
Because I begin to feel uncomfortable, because if you worked hard and maybe you came up from nothing and you got a scholarship and you went into business and you made a lot of money and you enjoyed it and you shared some of it as you should. So if you did that, then there's nothing wrong with your wealth. It's not going to choke the word. But it's when it's nothing but lure of wealth.
It's the focus on it.
Becomes an obsession rather than a potential good that you get hurt.
Yeah,
I agree, and of course for Matthew's gospel especially, he never criticizes wealth for being evil or anything. It's the love of money. It's what you can do. Just like with our own, those of us that are not wealthy but have power. again, as people, whether we admit it or not, we do have a white privilege that because we in our culture, and this is true around the world, even in some cultures that are all people that are dark skinned people. Often the lighter skinned people of the dark skinned people are the ones that get more breaks, kind of. They have more.
That's true in Brazil.
Yes, and it's very true. It's true in the Dominican Republic. I have a friend that had to leave the Dominican Republic because he was so black. He's a priest in Wilmington, Delaware, a great priest. And he said, even though there's racism, and again, not to let us off the hook because we have work to do to honor. We can't just tolerate people. We have to embrace across culture and to really honor people. But and we're working on that. But so.
What did he say that to be very black where he was from?
Yes, he's in the Dominican Republic because he was so black. He said that he had a lot more opportunity in America because he was so black in his home country that he was very black, beautiful, beautiful skin.
Yeah, that's so.
But he's like charcoal colored, and so. Yeah. And I've heard that, and also Pastor Blois admitted that in Jamaica. Pastor Blois is fairly light skinned. Black person, and he said in Jamaica it's the same. Father Max, he said, so he admits that racism isn't just in our culture. Obviously, that's one reason why Black Lives Matter, that movement has resonated globally. You can see because they know that that's true in other places too.
Yes.
And so it's again for Matthew too. He celebrates that people like Barnabas. They shared their wealth, that they were able to have such impact. And, when I work with young people for weddings, and all my weddings were canceled. Now I have all these new weddings popping every day. New weddings for 2 people, 4 people on the beach at someone's property.
Love it. That's so great.
I have more weddings now than I had planned to have. They're coming in every day. And baptisms too. And
I would love to have had that kind of wedding. Oh my gosh.
Well, it's funny, Connie, because I had some people are saying, well, we'll get married now, almost like a legal thing, even though they want me to do it, not a justice of the peace. But then they'll have a party a year from now, something like this. So I had a lovely person call the other day. She was quarantining in Wisconsin. They live in Minneapolis, but the father has a getaway little old farm, by a brook that they go down to. So they're quarantining there with their parents. And she was saying that young friends, and she lives in the city, the only city worth mentioning, New York City, normally. And she said, those of us that left New York City and are with our parents are being responsible. She said, but my friends that left New York City and went someplace on their own, they're out partying and causing trouble. Yeah. But I said, well, do you plan on having so they're going to have a wedding with 6 people out at Cotu. They're going to pick me up on a boat, like Jesus. Pick me up on a boat and bring me out to Cotu, weather permitting. And so I said, well, you're going to have a big party then next year, like other brides and grooms. She said, oh, no. She said, I just want to get married. It's not about the party. I want to get married. And so I thought I said, I like this girl already, to do that.
I really like that. I really had to have a big wedding because it would have been, it's just with the times and the family I was marrying into and all that. But my mother has been an invalid for 6 years, so I had to do it all myself, and I was a nervous wreck.
Yes, Ollie too. Ollie's mom had trouble out there.
Nice to just.
It was St. Mark's Locust Street, right?
Yeah.
Did you have incense at your wedding?
We had everything.
The works.
We had both the rector of St. Mark's, and then we had my rector from Good Shepherd. The church.
Just to cement the deal.
Roman Catholic.
Oh, the church that became Catholic, yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
It's a wonderful church.
Well, listen, if you're going to have any more full immersion baptisms, you tell them you can't do it until after August 5th, because I want to see one.
Yes, okay, well, I think I do have some more later this summer. Then you can swim like me, swim in the baptismal water. It's rare that we have a chance to do that. Again, it takes all my power to make Nantucket Sound
That's a big push.
the holy water. So this is I was saying when I prepare with even these weddings for 3 or 4 people, I have been having a survey with them where it's responses. It says things like, My partner is always a good listener. I'm worried that one of us has too much credit card debt, things like that. 165 responses, and you say agree, disagree, strongly agree. And so often the money part is where people fail. They don't have a plan for their money. They're anxious about money. They have big debt from school. Again, this poor young woman that I baptized last week, she has $300,000 in debt for medical school. I said I wish I could wash that away, which is not fair. And so, I always tell the couple, that's we're talking about wealth. Your wealth needs to serve you and what you hold dear. You can't be serving your wealth. And
Right.
so many people, they die with every dollar in the bank. They don't have any joy in their wealth. I've known some, as you have, Steve, I'm sure too. You've known those wealthy people that it's never enough, and they don't find joy and don't appreciate and give thanks.
When I first got talked into tithing by a minister here in New York, one reason I went along with it was I thought I wanted to prove that I owned the money didn't own me.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. Yes, exactly. The money didn't own you; you own the money. Yeah.
So I have to go. It's been an absolute delight.
Yes, thank you, Steve. Thanks for calling in with us, zooming in. And if you again tonight, maybe you can see tonight our variety show at 7 if you're able.
Yeah, as long
Okay.
as I can see the big lobster.
Okay, good. Looking forward to that. Okay, good. See. Okay, we'll end with a closing prayer too. It's time for us to get on with our sunny day, and so we'll end with a prayer. The Lord be with you.
And with thy spirit.
O Lord, be with us all the day long, until the shadows lengthen and the evening comes, and the busy world is hushed, and the fever of life is over, and our work is done. Then in thy mercy grant us a safe lodging and a holy rest, and peace at the last. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, so bye everyone. I'll see everyone tonight. Hope at 7. Bless you.